Well, good day, everybody. Rob and Terry back again now with the CC3 Pastime Videos. We're here today with Sharon Sanford. You've probably been noticing some videos that we've had on about the Sing for Sharon. We've had several on for that, and this being Heart Month, we felt that we would put on some of these videos because of it being Heart Month and because of Sharon's experience. You've seen a lot of the 1996 videos where the Sing for Sharon, and you also hopefully would have seen the 2004 interview. So we're here now to sort of update on Sharon's conditions and lifestyle, and welcome, Sharon.
Thank you.
Welcome. I should mention the fact that we're here at the Divide Sea Cafe in Kings Point. Graciously lent us their conference room for this interview.
An alternative studio.
Community-minded business. So Sharon, you've come a long way.
It's been an adventure.
I bet.
That's why we call it the Grand Adventure for a reason, because
I don't know if adventure would be the right word.
It's definitely been an adventure.
Well, when the recipient and the person having the problems can call it an adventure, it's pretty significant, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, we'll go with that. Okay, so Sharon, you've had a lot of experience. You've told us a lot about on that video up to 2004 what had taken place. So there's definitely been some changes now. So want to bring us a little, maybe a preamble of what went from there?
If I preamble too far off to one side or the other, bring me back.
We've got lots of tape.
I'm all about the little trails and following.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I came home that time. I think my husband and I came home. I think it was Bobby Burt's graduation.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were doing a road trip. We popped home for that, and it just so happened at the same time you were doing the on-air telethon.
That was for the EMAF,
yes,
right?
Which had started for me, basically,
yes, exactly.
Right? And then it grew into a community benefit and so I came home for that. And that was fun. I was pretty much riding pretty comfortably from then on. My heart was actually improving a little bit. I was getting stronger slowly, still slow as a turtle all the time, and being careful about what I was doing. And I was moving forward and getting stronger. And then in 2011, I had a mix-up with some antibiotics and my one medication, which was sotalol. And so the antibiotic nullified the sotalol, and I went into heart failure that summer and didn't realize it. And then later in the fall, we had some pretty traumatic things happen that year. And so it was an emotional fall and winter for me. And we got to November, and I was really sick. In heart failure, didn't know it. Some fluid built up and was diagnosed with pneumonia.
Wow.
And given the same antibiotic for the pneumonia, my defibrillator fired for the first time. And so I had the defibrillator implanted in 96, and this is the first time that the defibrillator is fired. And I didn't know it did. I woke up and I said to Martin, I think my defibrillator fired. And he's like, well, why do you think that? And I said, I don't know, maybe I dreamt it. So he said, yeah, maybe you dreamt it, because it had never fired.
I've heard that from people that have them, and they say it's an awful kick in the chest, apparently, when they go off.
How it was described to me first in 96 when I was 22, I was told that one of the other patients was a fairly large man, over 6 foot, really fit and strong. And he was walking down through the mall, and his defibrillator fired, and he spun around with his fists up to defend himself because he thought someone had punched him in the back.
Wow.
That first one I had, I just felt it was more of a sound. I always say it's a sound, and nobody really identifies it, but it's the rush of blood through your ears and all the around your ears, and it for me it was like I thought I dreamt it, but I was so sick anyway, and I was laying down or perched, kind of sitting up, but laying down because of the fluid, and I was uncomfortable and I was sick, and then later that day it actually fired again while I was laying there. And I felt it, and it's pretty intense. it's just like a buildup of energy. You can feel this energy just kind of building, and then it's like an explosion in your chest. It's basically if you're watching the defibrillators on TV where they're putting the defibrillators on someone and you see them bounce off the bed.
Yeah.
It's like that, only it's inside out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never looked at it like that before, but I can see now where
power.
Yeah.
Wow. It's literally. Yeah, and if you're watching, we were talking earlier about seeing things after and relating to it, but it is. If you see that, that is real. When the defibrillators are going on and they go clear and it's like they bounce off the bed, well, you're getting that internally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's crazy.
Shot Sharon back into rhythm.
It did, yes. So that was fine. So the defibrillator, that was officially bonus life 1 was when they put it in. Then the defibrillator fired, so we were in bonus life 2. The next day it was bonus life 3.
Wow.
And that was, I believe, that's when I ended up with the blood clot in my leg. I was at 210 beats a minute. We got through all that. And then, but I started slowly getting weaker after that. So my condition changed from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy to dilated cardiomyopathy.
So you mentioned the infection that you had and the antibiotics. And you were saying that interfered with some of your medications?
With one. I just had the one medication, the Sodalol. It was a beta blocker.
Wow.
I guess you're on. Sorry, Rob.
Yep.
You're on beta blocker, and our producer over there, he's on a beta
There
blocker.
You go. Well, the excuse, I guess it was an excuse, because when I went back to see my doctor after, and I flat out asked him if there was any chance that this fluid could move and be around my heart, and he's like, no, absolutely not. Well, and when we went back, I'm like, how did you not know? How could you be so confident? And he said the beta blocker was a really old beta blocker and nobody was using it anymore. And he basically wasn't that up to, like, his knowledge wasn't up there on that medication.
Wow.
And so we went through that. And then my heart was getting weaker and weaker after that because of the dilated cardiomyopathy. I think it was 2013, that winter. I had another episode where I was trying to lose some weight, so my heart didn't have to work as hard. And I ended up on an Atkins diet where I was just eating protein and not enough. And from the 2011, I went from one medication, one pill I took once a day, to a handfuls of pills. So it changed. When it changed conditions, it definitely changed. And so anyway, I was doing the weight loss thing, and one of the other meds I was on was a water pill. And that leaches out electrolytes, potassium electrolytes from your system, right? The water, so the water pills that I was taking for the fluid was leaching out all the potassium. I had been eating a banana at night for restless leg syndrome, which works really well. Kind of green, not too ripe. And once I stopped eating that banana every night. Plus, I was just doing mostly proteins for the induction period for the Atkins. I think that's what they called it. Yeah. And my potassium and my electrolytes dropped out, and my defibrillator fired again. Wow. So that was the next bonus life.
We're up to 4 bonus lives now.
Right there. I think that's where we are there. And then it's been a crazy ride. And then in 2015, I guess it was, I came home that summer. Mom and Dad had moved back to Newfoundland. They were doing their first summer home. And the doctor had suggested that I should go home for a visit. He said, if you want to go home for a visit, go home for a visit. And I was in denial of everything because right from 1996, when Dr. Stern said, do this, I did this, and this, and I'm still alive. He suggested that if I wanted to go home to Newfoundland, I should go home for a visit. I didn't realize that he was saying go home and say goodbye.
Oh, wow.
Go home and see people. I didn't realize that it was full on, I was dying. And I don't think anybody else around me realized it, but I had had the same relationship with my doctor, and he was amazing. He was the doctor from 96. He'd moved to Victoria. We followed up. He was my guy. Okay. So he was like family. So it was really hard for him. And then Dad flew out to meet me. I flew back with Dad. I was here for the summer. I look back on pictures now and I looked like I was dying that summer, but hindsight. And it was hard. Came home, went back again, and when I went back, I was just exhausted and I was too tired, and went to the hospital that August. They kept me in. Doctor said we have plans A through E, and once we get to E, then we'll figure out where to go from there. And we got to E. We changed defibrillator leads, we put in new leads, we did all sorts of stuff. And the next thing I knew, there was one of his teammates came in and said, your doctor's really too close to this situation, so he's going to step back, and we're talking about sending you to Halifax because we don't have an extra plan. This is it now. So the transplant, and up to that point, I remember the winter before I had asked, when we knew it was bad, but I didn't realize how bad, I'd asked, like, so what are the chances that I might get a heart transplant? And I was told none, because I was too weak. And I didn't understand that at the time. I just thought that if you needed an organ, you'd get an organ, and then you'd get better. But my body was too weak, and we didn't know about all the steps you needed to go through then. So that was the end of that.
Okay.
And then come August, the transplant team from Victoria came in to talk to me, and they said, we're going to move you to Halifax, or move you to St. Paul's in Vancouver, and we'll go from there. We'll see what'll happen. So then I was there for a week or so. The plan was to put in an LVAD, the left ventricle assist device, which is basically their official heart, where they put the leads and the wires into your heart. It pumps for you. You carry a battery around. It's extensive.
That's just to keep you going until such time as you could receive a heart.
Could. So their plan was, we'll put in the LVAD. You stay here in Vancouver for up to 6 months on doing healthy heart class. Okay. So their deal is, if they put in the LVAD, then you have to have at least 6 months before they'll put you on the transplant list. So you have to stay in Vancouver with your artificial heart. And then when you're strong enough and your body's fit, they'll put you on the transplant list. And then you have endless time. Maybe you'll get a heart.
Yeah. While waiting for a match. Yeah.
While waiting. And you had to stay near Vancouver for that.
All of this must have caused a vast amount of upheaval in your family. A total life change for everybody.
Everything. Up until this point, most of the year before, Martin had spent more time home with me than at work. So it was struggling anyway. If I woke up in the morning and was having a bad day, he was with me. If I called him, he came home. So it was a struggle anyway. Then he called Mom and Dad and said, listen, this is not good. I think maybe you should come back, which was hard because it was their first summer home. And they're like, oh, okay. Jumped on a plane, came on. It wasn't a question for them. Yeah. Then we hit Vancouver. So they sent me from Victoria to Vancouver. Then we're looking for a place to stay, a place for Mom, Dad, and Martin. We had the dog. We had two. We had a puppy and an older dog, and it was just total upheaval. Within days of being in Victoria, that's when Lori Matthews, Lori Burton formerly, started the Team Sharon.
Okay.
And so this is the second bout. So first we had Sing for Sharon, Road Stop for Sharon, Skate-a-thon for Sharon. That was in 1996. And then all of a sudden, here I am, literally dying, but not knowing it because I'm still in denial because they always save me. It doesn't matter. Like, they're just going to fix it. Yeah. So then Lori starts the Team Sharon. And first it was more emotionally and overwhelming. Like, I've done this. I've been through this. Everybody has given. That hard part of accepting help from even your family sometimes is hard. But then when you've got just neighbors in the community and people you don't even know stepping up,
so willing to
I'm
help.
like, yeah, I was almost to the point where we can't do this again. Like, somebody else needs this more than I do. I'm on bonus life 5, just right. But that's not how it works in our world. So it ended up forever grateful because with him being in Vancouver, Mom had an apartment for all of us to stay in, which is uncalled for. You never hear that anyway, that you could just find a reliable place near the hospital. And the the Team Sharon helped pay for all that. Then they started in Ucluelet as well. They had fundraisers and
so you've had 2 homes helping you.
2 homes. I almost wore my Ucluelet shirt today. I forgot actually to put on the red one. And so it ended up in Vancouver. We're talking about the LVAD, going to have to be there for 6 months at least, and then extended time after that if I'm on the transplant list. The doctor came into my room. They decided that on a Thursday, I think it was. And then the doctor came into the room and he said, we're going to put you on the transplant list, but we think you have maybe 2 to 3 weeks left with this heart. And I'm like, excuse me, what do you mean? And he's like, your heart's got maybe 2 to 3 weeks. 2 weeks, we can keep it going.
That's before they.
Wow.
And that was the minute that it kind of hit everybody sitting in that room that my team couldn't fix it.
Wow.
That was the first time since 1996 that something was going on.
2 weeks left to live.
2 weeks.
Wow.
That's all. 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks was a stretch. So they said instead of putting in the LVAD in the next few days like they were going to do, we're going to give you 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we're going to put you on the transplant list. Don't get excited because nobody gets a heart in 2 weeks. That's what they flat out said, but we're going to give you that shot.
Encouraging.
Full of good news right off the bat.
And I'm like, well, how does that work when you wouldn't let me do it before? But now, and they said, well, I think at the end of it, that it was a life-saving measure more so than a weak body getting a heart that a strong body might be eligible for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I would have been nowhere on the list anywhere. I wouldn't have been near the top anywhere before then, because if someone that was much stronger and more likely to keep the heart going would get it over me because my body was pretty much ready to go.
You were down the list because of that.
Yes.
Okay.
So they put me on the transplant list and they told me they'd delay the LVAD implant for a couple of weeks until they absolutely had to put it in.
Yeah.
And it was less than 48 hours. A nurse walked in the room. Martin had gone to get a sandwich. Mom and Dad had stepped out for coffee or something. Rare time that I was ever by myself. And she came in and said she was doing something with my meds. And I said, what are you doing? She said, oh, we got to change you over for the transplant meds. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she kind of like physically just stopped, looked me in the eye, and you could see that like sometimes when they go blank.
Yeah.
She went completely blank and backed out of the room. She walked backwards out of the room. All the nurses and the doctors had been out around the desk, which was just like the other side of my room. They were all out there, all excitedly planning my transplant, but they'd forgotten to tell me. So then they all came in at the same time, and Mom and Dad and Martin came back at the same time, so it was all convenient. And yeah, we went ahead and we did it. So I was less than 48 hours. I was very close to a record at the time.
Wow.
And yeah, right place, right time, and that's been my thing.
You mentioned that earlier, that you've ever since this started, you've been right place, right time at each episode. Yeah. That's amazing. Wow, it's amazing. Yeah.
You had your transplant. That was in 2015.
Yes, August 30th I went in.
Okay, so how have your life changed since that, and was it very traumatic to have this? You know, was it a long recovery after the transplant?
Everybody's transplant journeys are so different in that sometimes I kind of feel like a faker in that everybody's like, oh my goodness, you went through so much. Yeah. Well, like, I just followed orders. That's what I did. I followed orders. I stayed as positive as I could. I had a positive environment around me constantly. One of the biggest things for me was comparing myself to other people. So I got to meet the Healthy Heart people after my transplant. So you start going to Healthy Heart class after, right? Oh, yeah. So that's why you have to stay in Vancouver. You have to be going to Healthy Heart class 3 times a week. You're doing all this education, nutrition, physical. And for me, it was hard because the majority of the people that I was meeting, they had had the artificial hearts.
Okay,
So they were all like superheroes. Like their bodies were built and strong, and their minds, because they were going through all of this for 6 months beforehand, they had the emotional care, the physical care, the mental care, like it was all. So for me, I just got a brand new heart that was super strong, but my body was 2 weeks away from death still. So it was a little bit of a harder run for me in that way. And I got, there's this CMV, I think Barry might know, I think it's CRV, is, it's something that you carry. Almost 98% of the human population carry it, but it only comes out, it's a virus that only comes out if you're immune compromised. Usually, it's like a really bad stomach flu, it feels like. So that hit me. My heart had it, my new heart had it, and it hit me really hard. But I was really lucky that the meds for that helped me. It didn't affect my kidneys or anything. Before I went in for the transplant too, they said that I was just days away from possible kidney and heart transplant. So because my kidneys were failing at the same time because of the heart meds. So then we went, once I got through all that, that meant I was much longer getting healthier and being able to exercise than other transplant recipients that I knew. Because they were all fit. They were all fit, and I wasn't.
Yeah, you were behind in class.
I was way behind. Story of my life right there. That's where I was all through. And so, but once I was able to get past the virus and to get out there and start walking, and we had such beautiful trails in Ucluelet, and so I was just out daily walking. By the time I came home to Newfoundland, I was pretty fit. I was working towards, I could do 6 kilometers on a flat walking, but I was working towards the 8 kilometers for the Alexander Murray Trail.
Wow.
So that's what I was working towards. The difference was just insane. It was just a whole new life. It really, really was.
So did you try the Murray Trail?
No, and I've decided that I'm old enough now that I can say I don't need to do the Murray Trail.
just erase that off the bucket list.
That's the other thing I've learned. Like I probably could go at the end with this, but one of the things I've learned in all of this, I follow my doctor's orders. I advocate for myself, which is something that I could preach about. But I've learned that just because you think you need to get to levels, or you think this is a goal that you need, or you need, just day by day.
Yeah.
And there's too many flies and bugs, and it's sweaty and it's hot, and it's how many stairs? No, that's not me.
Okay, yeah. Go now. You need to be healthy. You need to take care of ourselves, the same as all of us here in this room.
Yes.
But you don't need to prove that you're Superman.
No.
Right? You just need to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and like such as climbing the Alexander Murray Trail. Would it be worth it to have you get a helicopter to come and get you out of it? And
it's good to have goals, but like, how much do you? I'm not a trail person. So
right. Like, how important is it now for you to do trail?
Exactly.
Like, you got a new heart now.
I have a new heart.
And a new life. And,
I did Caribou. Yay.
Yeah, there you go.
And I may still do the Alexander Murray Trail, but I'm not putting much pressure on myself to get up there to that flagpole.
No.
So Sharon, the date you had the heart transplant again was
August 30th.
Okay, so when did you move home then after that?
2019.
Okay.
It was that long. They knew I wanted to come back to Newfoundland, but because there was no transplant team in Newfoundland, I had to be set up with a family doctor, which nobody had at the time, and I had to have a team here or in Halifax or Ottawa. So it was about a year and a half, I guess.
So medication-wise and things now, are you just on normal medications or? I'm
on immune suppressant meds. I've got 2 separate immune suppressant meds, which, thank goodness, they're covered by some sort of medical government program thing, because I think one of them is like $1,300 a month for one of the meds.
Wow.
That's what it was 5 years ago. Who knows? Or 9 years ago. Who knows what it is now? So I'm on simple meds now. It's like before transplant, like literally I
Yeah.
had a pile of
breakfast.
medications, kidneys, heart, blood thinners, all sorts of things. And now it's just I've got 2 immunosuppressants that I take twice a day and a blood pressure and some supplements. So,
Wow.
I mean,
So
it's,
no rejection drugs?
Those are the rejection drugs.
What are
Are the
rejection drugs,
transplant
right?
meds?
Okay.
Yeah, there's anti-rejection.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that right after transplant was terrifying because you're so scared that
Sure.
Your body's going to reject it.
your body's going to reject it, and you're getting biopsies. I was getting biopsies at least once a week back in the beginning. Then it went to once every 6 months or so, and then once a year, and now I haven't had a biopsy in a long time.
So those biopsies are directly from the heart muscle?
They're right here. I don't know, you can probably see, but I've got all these little white dots on my neck here.
Okay.
And that's where it's like an ultrasound. Kind of, I don't even know if it's like an ultrasound, but they put a lead in through your main artery up here, and that goes right down into your heart. And at the end of it, it's got a little snipper. It's like a little pair of scissors with a little snipper on it.
Yeah.
And a vacuum. So that little pair of scissors goes in and snips off a couple of little pieces of your heart, and it gets sucked back up the string or the tube, and you can see it after in the little vial.
Yeah, I
and they look like, I said they look like, what do you call them? They were always on the back of comic books, the little fish. What were they called? Sea monkeys.
Sea monkeys.
That's what, from the pictures of the sea monkeys, it's like a little jar of sea monkeys. But yeah.
So I know what that's like. I had 3 biopsies, or they had to take 3 biopsies on my kidney there a couple of weeks ago, and that's how they did that with those. And when they take it, there's a bang, a crack.
Yeah. That was probably, of all of the things emotionally through all the transplant, I think the thing that was the hardest for me were those biopsies. Just other than that, you just kind of went with the flow and did what you were told and did the best you could.
Built up your.
And the other hard thing was you're in the hospital and they've got you on morphine and Dilaudid and all these heavy duty pain meds. And then usually if your transplant goes well, they look at letting you out after 10 days. They sent me home early because they wanted to send me home early because there was a virus in the hospital, and they thought I'd be safer at the apartment than there. So they came in on day 5, I think it was, and they were going to send me home on day 6, and I lost my cool. I was because it was like following orders, and they said 10 days, right? Like, so how could you possibly? And so it ended up they let me stay for 7 days, and then I got out. But one of the harder things was right up until that day, they took like the morphine drip out of my arm, and there was another one, I forget what it was called, Dilaudid, I think it was. And that was all IV meds. I had all these IV meds just pouring into me. They stopped them all, and they told me to buy extra strength Tylenol.
The good stuff.
The good stuff, yeah, the extra strength Tylenol. So that was.
What a breakdown.
That was hard. That was really, really hard. But other than that, like, you adjust to it, you keep going one day at a time, and yeah.
So it's your game. So Sharon, this is like 29 years later. You've got your life back.
Yes.
Things have changed. Tell us a little bit about how things have changed.
I didn't even get it back. I got a new one.
Okay.
Like, I still have my people. Some people I lost along the way, but that's right. They kind of didn't, people come for their time periods, and then we move on. It's completely different in that I'm still slower than most. So I give myself a hard time about that sometimes, because I forget that I had a transplant. Like most days. Like, I don't think about it. I don't get up in the morning and think, oh my God, this is going to affect me today. It doesn't.
So life is back to normal.
Life is definitely a normal. Exactly. Yeah. Life is a normal. Wow. I get up, take my pills. As long as I'm taking my meds, I'm good. Transplant meds come from St. John's. They're shipped out. Like, it's just get up, take a bit, go. And, but the difference is now there really wasn't a future. There was a future, but I was kind of stuck in this slow motion going forward. Now there's actually purpose other than just staying alive.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so now we moved home in 2015, started the glassworks. I'd worked for a summer at the pottery shop. They needed a new glassworks person for their stained glass clothesline. My husband and I went off, did a course, came home, figured it out, started doing the stained glass for Kings Point Pottery. And now we're slowly growing into, bit by bit, into a Kings Point Glassworks, which is ours. Coming down here, I come here to the cafe and set up for 8-10 hour days, sit and talk to people. And
so that's working out for you.
It's working out. It's just the fact that I can go. We always laughed about I couldn't go to Canadian Tire or Walmart or Home Depot. Like those places were the bane of my existence because you had to walk so far.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
yes.
right? Like you get in there and God forbid you had to go to the washroom or something, which was another part of all the meds and everything. And it was just, those big stores were terrifying for me. Even going to the movies, like if we went to the movie theater, like just getting up and finding your way and getting
This is
back.
all pre-transplant.
This is all pre-transplant. Now, none of that.
No.
Like just get up and go. Get up and go. Like it's, I'm a little bit not as strong as I'd like to be because I don't do as much physical activity as I should be doing. But that's
Join
my,
the club.
it's like, it's winter in Kings Point. Where are we walking? Right? But it's been a completely different world. And it's changed my whole being really, because it's one of those things that dying almost, or having, like people say, oh, you're so strong, you got through this, you did, but it's all learning. It's all learning as I'm going. And
not only for you though, Sharon, it's for Martin, for your family, you know.
How does Martin fit into this? I mean, he's from what you've been saying, he's been your crutch, your lifeline, your everything all the way up through. Where is he from? Is he a Newfoundlander or is he?
No, he's from Nova Scotia. Okay. We actually met. I graduated at Velma, went to Springdale Community College for early childhood education. Something was screaming at me that I needed to get out of Kings Point. I needed to be somewhere else. And I didn't know what it was, but I had to go. Ended up in Nova Scotia. Martin and I were best friends. We met at Teachers College. So we'd been like best friends for a couple of years while I was up there. And then I remembered him.
Wow.
Yeah, when I had the amnesia and people were coming and going and I didn't remember most people, but he came in and I knew who he was.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
And it's just like, I always say that for every terrible, terrible thing, like if we're just going along and it's like, woe is me, and I, cursing this and cursing that because, why me? Yeah. It gets you nowhere. You sink into the misery that you're in, right? Yeah. But every single thing, if I hadn't left Kings Point to be in Nova Scotia when I did, hour away from Grand Falls, who's to say that anyone would have even seen me, or, right place, right time.
Yeah. You wouldn't have got bonus life 1.
I wouldn't have got bonus life 1. I believe that 150%. And he's been my rock. He's been amazing. And I figured out who was really important, and you learn a lot of empathy along the way, and kindness and positivity. It's like the most powerful, the powers we have. Yeah. Right? It's perspective.
You've not exactly flying colors, I guess.
I think so. I'm almost embarrassed sometimes that I feel like I had it so easy.
Do you realize that, like, how much of an inspiration you could be to someone that's just beginning probably the journey in a different place that you started?
I have a heart.
Have you realized that you could, you really can come through this and have a life?
I find that so hard sometimes, in that, like, I'll be talking to people that they're going through something right now. And it's like, I don't want to make this about me and say, hey, well, I did this, this, and this, and this happened, because everybody's so different and everybody goes through everything so differently, and emotionally, physically. But it's hard for me not to just jump into every conversation and say, oh my goodness. But if you just look at it this way.
You earned it right.
Yeah.
If you just look at it this way, like
Absolutely.
you've got the wrong, but usually if somebody's not in the same perspective as you are, then they don't want it right
No.
now sometimes. So it's really hard to not like put myself into someone else's story and say, think this way, see it this way, because this can happen or this can happen. You know, so sometimes I kind
you
of
can probably
reel
feel who
it
you
in.
can talk
You can
to
feel
about that.
and yeah.
You know, like
So,
what they need to hear type of thing, maybe.
yeah, and I'm really grateful for that. I feel like I'm really blessed in that I have been able to comfort people.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sharon, we've had a wonderful chat to you, but it was amazing. 29 years ago, you, for all intensive purposes, you died.
I did.
10 years ago, you received a heart transplant.
I did. Well, it'll be 10 years, August 30th. Yeah.
10 years, okay, nine and a half years ago, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to be doing so well. And you're really an inspiration to people with heart troubles, and as well as other things, you know, just kidney transplants and anything that's it's possible to be done.
Long-term suffering. It's just long-term disabilities and illnesses. They're just, yeah, it's hard.
So it's awesome, and we're really grateful that it all worked out for you.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing your story.
Yes, thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
to those folks out there, sign that donor card.
Put the little heart on your license.
Yeah.
Do it. Do it. Do it.